I feel really good about the group in there, and hopefully that over the course of these 5 weeks, the challenge to these guys is you cannot come back the same player. You got to come back better. You got to come back in better shape, and you got to come back better mentally.
The Green Bay Packers have quickly emerged as a Super Bowl contender in the NFC conference, and it's really a combination of two things. One, how the Packers ended the 2023 season, ending the regular season on a 3-game win streak and sneaking into the playoffs, destroying the number 2 seed in the Dallas Cowboys in one of the most surprising games in recent memory, walking into Jerry's World and putting up 48 points in a game that was really never close, and then following that game up against the number 1 seed San Francisco 49ers on the road. The Packers led in that game late in the fourth quarter and really for the majority of the game. But the second reason why this team is seen as a true contender this upcoming season is just a number of offseason moves that they made to improve their roster. The first one being signing Josh Jacobs to a 4-year, $48 million deal. And Jacobs, who led the league in rushing yards just 2 seasons ago, is still in his prime at only 26 years old. And he's going to step in and replace Aaron Jones, who was approaching that vaunted 30-year-old mark and did struggle to stay healthy last season. So I do think the Packers just wanted to have somebody they could rely on just a little bit more. But on the defensive side of the ball, they also got one of the top free agents as well, signing safety Xavier McKinney from the New York Giants on a 4-year, $68 million contract. And McKinney's one of the best ball hawks in the league. He had 9 interceptions across 49 games played for the Giants. So he's going to provide a different element to this Packers defense next season. But adding 2 elite players to the team in free agency was not the only additions that they would make. You head to the NFL draft, and Green Bay's class was actually one of my favorite in the entire league. Their first round pick was Jordan Morgan, a tackle out of Arizona, and he's a very versatile player, can probably play anywhere on the offensive line. I think the Packers will try him out at left tackle to begin with, but some scouts said that his arm length is not long enough to be a really good tackle at the next level, but I think his athleticism and size should make up for that. But regardless of where he does end up playing, the Packers will have a plug-and-play offensive lineman. In the second round, the team helped out their linebacking core with Edgerrin Cooper out of Texas A&M, and this past year's draft was not super deep at the linebacker position, but Cooper was widely seen as the top one in the draft, and he is just somebody who is super athletic, has very good pursuit, and now he's going to pair up with Quay Walker, who the team drafted in the first round a couple years ago, and I really like the talent in that room. With their second round pick, they drafted Javon Bullard out of Georgia, another safety to pair with Xavier McKinney, and Bullard is another guy that has great ball skills and great athleticism. So now Green Bay is going to have 2 new playmakers in the back end of their defense. And the last pick I want to touch on is Marshawn Lloyd out of USC. He joins a running back room that has Josh Jacobs, who I mentioned, and AJ Dillon, but he's going to be more of this speed back. He has great acceleration and burst, but he's also not your biggest back, just over 5'9" and 217 pounds. But he's been somebody that's been getting a lot of really good reviews so far in Packers minicamp. So you add him in as the change of pace back to Josh Jacobs and AJ Dillon, and this running back room is going to be very, very fun to watch. And even outside of all this talent that was added this offseason, the Packers were also one of the youngest teams of all time last year, and many of those players are going to continue to improve in the next couple of years. You go to the wide receiver courts, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and Jaden Reed, 3 guys that were drafted in the last 2 years and have shown a lot of flashes of becoming really, really good players. The tight end position, the Packers double dipped in the 2023 NFL draft, drafting Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, and the offensive line will continue to get better as well. Pro Football Focus ranks the Packers as the 14th best heading into the season, but obviously the biggest part of this offense is the quarterback in Jordan Love, and last year for him was really just a tale of 2 seasons. The first 9 starts for Love last season did not go super well. The Packers were 3-6 as a team, and Love was just really inconsistent on a down-to-down or even game-to-game basis. His completion percentage was not good, and it just felt like the Packers offense could never get into a rhythm. But after the 23-19 loss against the Pittsburgh Steelers, something flipped for Jordan Love. In the final 8 games of the regular season, statistically speaking, there was not a better quarterback in the National Football League than Jordan Love. He had 18 touchdowns to 1 interceptions, and the Packers took off as a team. They went from a team that looked like they were going to be picking in the top 10 of the NFL draft to actually being able to make the playoffs and appearing as the scariest wildcard team. So for 2024 and the rest of Jordan Love's career, the big question this offseason is, who really is Jordan Love? Is he more like the player we saw in the first half of last season? Is he more like the player that we saw in the second half of the season? Or is he somewhere in between? So because it was only his first season starting, there are still a lot of questions of what type of player he actually is. is, and that is ultimately going to be the biggest determining factor on what the Green Bay Packers can accomplish next season. If he can just carry the momentum of the final 8 games of the regular season into next year, I think majority of people would rank Jordan Love inside of their top 5 quarterbacks, and we could be looking at Green Bay having 3 straight potential Hall of Fame quarterbacks with Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and now Love. And as crazy as that might sound right now, with how Love ended last season, you cannot tell me he did not look like a young Aaron Rodgers just dicing up the Cowboys like he routinely did. And with how the Green Bay front office has built the infrastructure around Love, bringing in a proven elite running back this offseason in Josh Jacobs, continuing to see development out of all the young players that they've drafted in the past couple of years, Love finds himself in a very favorable situation when you also combine the fact that he has Matt LaFleur, who's one of the best offensive minds in the league, as his head coach. So I'm very optimistic about this Packers offense next season, which ranked 8th in the NFL with 23.8 points per game. I think that number will continue to improve as these young guys continue to gain more experience. Another piece to this Jordan Love situation is his contract. That's another thing that has been brought up a lot. If the Packers should pay Jordan Love after only really 8 good games last year, do you want to see a little bit more before paying him $200 million, or do you want to try and get ahead of the market and lock him up while you can? It's a very fascinating situation, but I would probably do something where I wait and see how the first half of the season goes for Love, and if he's still cooking and doing what he did to end off last season, then I would offer him the absolute bag. But I would understand if the Green Bay organization did have a few reservations if they did want to pay him that sum of money right this second. Quickly over to the defense, there are going to be numerous new starters on that unit and a new defensive coordinator. It's been well documented how bad Joe Barry was for the Packers during his tenure, so Matt LaFleur finally moved on and hired Jeff Hafley, the former Boston College head coach, to take over the position, and I'm pretty bullish on that hire, especially because of all the talent that is on this Green Bay defense. The defensive line is loaded with Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, and Preston Smith, and former first-round pick Lucas Van Ness also in the rotation. The secondary we already mentioned a little bit with the 2 new safeties, but I'm really excited to see that pairing. But at corner, it's Jair Alexander, who is one of the best in the league, and former first-round pick Eric Stokes. So top to bottom, similarly to the Packers offense, there's so much talent all across this unit, so there's not a glaring hole on this Green Bay Packers team, and it's going to be very entertaining to watch and see if they can follow up what they did to end off last year. I personally think it's a 2-team race between them and the Detroit Lions in the NFC North. The Vikings are in midst of a little bit of a reset because they lost their quarterback in Kirk Cousins. JJ McCarthy or Sam Darnold is going to be their starting quarterback. The Chicago Bears are a very young team and have a young rookie quarterback as well in Caleb Williams. So I put the Packers and the Lions in a class of their own, and I do think that could be a down to the wire race for the division title. It was pretty competitive last year. The Lions walked into Lambeau Field and beat Green Bay, but then on Thanksgiving, the Packers walked into Detroit and pretty much destroyed the Lions. So it's going to be an absolute war, and one of those teams are going to have to end up as a wild card team. But regardless, as we saw in 2023, wherever the Packers are playing, if they do sneak into the playoffs, they are still a very, very dangerous team. But if the Packers do want to be playing deep into January, having the ability to play a couple of games in the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field might be the advantage that they need to get over some of the other powerhouses in the conference like the Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers. But I want to know what you think about the Green Bay Packers and what you expect from them next season. Do you think this team has what it takes to go on a run and win their first Super Bowl in over a decade? Or do you think this team is still too young to make a deep postseason push? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. But subscribe to the channel if you are new, drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in my next one.